that really people should be brought in from outside to help on this. You know, this is something we're, you know, why keep it secret? We all want to help out to prepare for the next event. From all the work I've done, I can only talk about probabilities, that we are overdue for one. So that's the best I can do. Now, I would be saying something entirely different if I had real evidence that there was one, that somebody had actually detected one. Well, Starburst Foundation, for example, would go into high gear to say, you know, we've got to start preparing. We're not prepared for something like this. Not even for a Carrington event solar flare, which could wipe out all the power systems if we had one.
So are you saying that the superwave would result in the wiping out of the power systems?
Oh, yeah.
What other effects would it have?
The thing is, the superwave on its forefront would have a very dense sort of shock front of cosmic rays. And this would have also an EMP, what we call EMP, electromagnetic pulse, associated with it, similar to what a high-altitude nuclear explosion would do in the atmosphere. And when this arrives, it's going to create similar phenomena, just like the starfish explosion. I believe it was near Hawaii, and when the EMP wave arrived, there were whole sections of the island who were having blackouts as a result. It also would fry electronic circuits, phones would go out. We've had even smaller events like gamma ray bursts affect the communication systems and do damage to our communication systems. So something like this would pretty much roast all the satellite equipment we've got. Cell telephones wouldn't be working, TV would be off the air if it depended on satellite. Perhaps telephones would continue to work if it was fiber optic. It was insulated from this sort of thing. Your power lines would pick up the pulse, the wires would have a huge voltage surge which would fry the transformers, the step-down transformers, to go from your million-volt voltages down to your voltages you use in your house. The cars that are all now with chips in them, in a case of a EMP from a nuclear explosion, for example, they warn that it could fry the chips in a car.
Esta burbuja será alcanzada alrededor de los años 2012-2013, cuando la órbita de la Tierra esté totalmente en el interior del cinturón. Alrededor del cinturón fotónico hay una enorme barrera llamada la zona nula. Contiene una región de increíble compresión energética. Es un lugar donde los campos magnéticos están tan fuertemente entrelazados entre sí que es imposible para cualquier tipo de campo magnético tridimensional atravesarlo sin ser alterado. Este hecho significa que el campo magnético de la Tierra y del Sol deben ser transformados en un nuevo tipo de magnetismo interdimensional. Por consiguiente, ustedes deben esperar un cambio en los campos eléctricos, magnéticos y gravitacionales de la Tierra. Tal cambio está ocurriendo actualmente. En las últimas décadas, el campo magnético de la Tierra ha estado disminuyendo gradualmente casi hasta cero. Muchos humanos han utilizado este fenómeno para probar que habrá un cambio notorio de la polaridad que arregla los finales del ciclo. Sin embargo, este consejo y científicos serios pueden asegurarles que no sucederá tal cambio de polaridad. El cambio es en el campo magnético de la Tierra, un efecto secundario de la presión ejercida sobre su sistema solar por el cinturón. Cuando el cinturón fotónico se manifieste totalmente, no permitirá que ningún aparato eléctrico funcione. Esto significa que los acumuladores o baterías, nada eléctrico operará cuando la Tierra esté dentro del cinturón. Ustedes requerirán una nueva forma de energía fotónica para hacer funcionar sus anteriores aparatos eléctricos, que pronto serán alterados. Otro desarrollo significativo que se espera que ocurra a medida que ustedes se acostumbren a la zona nula es un aumento de presión sobre la atmósfera del planeta y sobre su superficie. Este aspecto también está comenzando a notarse en el incremento de las actividades sísmicas en todo el planeta. Desde 1960 la Tierra ha registrado y entrado en un periodo en el cual las actividades sísmicas en todo el planeta se han incrementado. Cambios radicales. Lo mismo puede decirse en relación con la...
And this is something that could last 400 years, you're saying? once it
Well,
arrived?
the forefront, we're talking about something that might just be minutes,
Okay,
and it would be probably preceded by a gravity wave, which would cause earthquakes, seismic events all over the earth,
okay.
not just in one place. So that might be the first warning, actually, things shaking. The thing is that whatever they are, we can only guess because they're so far away. Most of the gamma ray bursts that we are picking up come from other galaxies, millions of light years away.
Yes.
There's been only one case. We've observed one that came from within our galaxy. It was a place near the galactic center, but not at the core.
Explosion.
Gamma ray burst. This was the first one they'd found that was emitted from within our galaxy. It was the most intense that they'd ever observed in the history of gamma ray observatory physics. And the coincidence of being just shortly after the worst earthquake we've had in 40 years, it's, you can do the probabilities, and you come with very small probabilities due to chance. And what's unusual there is that about 2 days before the gamma ray burst arrived was the worst seismic event that we've had in 30 years that caused the 2004 Boxer Day tsunami in Malaysia, and over 250,000 people.
Mira el siguiente patrón. El 27 de febrero del 2010 el eje se movió 3 pulgadas con el megaterremoto de Chile de 8.8. 188 días más tarde, el 3 de septiembre del 2010, en Nueva Zelanda, el terremoto de 7 también movió el eje terrestre. Y 189 días más tarde, el 11 de marzo del 2011, también se movió el eje con el megaterremoto de Japón de 9, en este caso más casi 5 pulgadas. 188 días más tarde, el 15 de septiembre, hubo otro terremoto de 7.3. El día 22 del 2012 se esperaba un megaterremoto y en vez sucedieron 2, el día 20 en México de 8, el día 24 en Chile también de 7.9. De todas maneras, poco a poco se está poniendo el eje recto por la fuerza gravitacional de la galaxia que le está tirando hacia el sureste. Esto querría decir que tendríamos un clima tropical por todo el planeta, pero claro, el hecho de que se ponga recto puede ser de golpe con un terremoto de 12, lo cual sería muy traumático. Estos terremotos suceden en latitudes entre 30 y 40 de norte a sur y parece como si fueran los terremotos específicos que hace este tirón de fuerza magnética. Como veis, esto ya se está estudiando porque puede ser que la Tierra, la eclíptica de la Tierra es como un huevo y entonces es cuando, como más o menos cada 6 meses, es cuando encajan las dos elipses, la más circular y la más elíptica. Veis aquí en el mapa que sucede en lugares que tienen que ver con las líneas ley de la rejilla planetaria. Todo parece que sigue un orden y probablemente saben predecir terremotos, lo que pasa es que todavía no tienen. Al parecer, la fuerza de atracción de gravedad del centro de la galaxia está creando esta inclinación de eje que poco se va a poner recto, perpendicular, e iremos hacia un clima tropical en todo el planeta. Se dice que los de Andrómeda colocaron la Luna para mantener el eje de la Tierra inclinado de forma estable, porque la última vez que pasamos el ecuador galáctico fue catastrófico de forma negativa. Y sucedió esto, se desvió creando un desequilibrio en cómo entran las energías del cielo y de la Tierra. El eje de la Tierra está inclinado y precisamente en esa inclinación del eje hace que los chakras superiores no estén activos, ya que no entran las espirales y las energías del cielo y de la Tierra de forma radial. Cuando se ponga el eje recto de la Tierra, podremos recuperar el paraíso, porque entonces incluso el karma, que son los patrones emocionales atascados desde siglos en la humanidad, se descifra por el tránsito del eclipse de la Tierra cuando cruza con el de la Luna, que es la que mantiene la Tierra en ese eje inclinado, estable, y precisamente es donde son los eclipses y son los nódulos de dónde venimos y hacia dónde vamos en esta vida. Se habla mucho de la ascensión, y la ascensión realmente es una evolución emocional. Es una evolución Tierra, volver a todo un clima tropical en toda la Tierra y a ese paraíso sin enfermedades y sin karma. El eje recto de la Tierra, volver a todo un clima tropical en toda la Tierra y a ese paraíso sin enfermedades y sin karma. En la Tierra estamos aprendiendo sobre relaciones del amor. El amor es nuestra meta en el planeta Tierra, Gaia.
That there was this both 13,000 and 26,000 year period there, but I was a little off perhaps. But pretty much the whole thing travels at the speed of light towards this.
So then it could happen at any time. Am I right?
Yeah, we're in the danger period. We're sort of like, you have to realize, which a lot of scientists don't because their theories still believe that galactic core explosions are every 100 million years. But you have to realize that we're on the fringe of a volcano, a galactic volcano. And it's an active volcano, and we should be expecting the eruption very soon. And it's interesting that the 5,300 year event, a small event of 20-year duration or so, occurred just before the beginning of the Mayan calendar cycle, the one that we're currently in. That cycle began 5,126 years before 2000, or before 2012, so around 3,100 BC. Whereas we're seeing this event was around 3,300 BC, plus or minus a few hundred years, because we don't know accurately from the dating. We're relying on ice cores.
Primero, se cambió la polaridad del Sol. Segundo, la Federación Galáctica situó varias naves de investigación atmosférica y equipos de personal de rastreo preparados quienes integraron sus actividades con las acciones del holograma interdimensional de la Tierra. Su único propósito es vigilar el hueco en la capa de ozono y asegurarse de que no se vuelva intolerante para la vida sobre su planeta. Además, estas naves y sus tripulantes son capaces de supervisar y corregir actividades sísmicas que se están presentando ahora a medida que su planeta y el sistema solar se aproximen y entren a la zona nula del cinturón fotónico. Lo que puede parecer para ustedes una pérdida será realmente un beneficio que permitirá que los campos de energía fotónicos sean alterados a nivel subatómico y se convertirá en la fuente de energía básica de su sistema solar, ya que todos los átomos y las moléculas cambian. Los seres humanos tendrán modificaciones en su misma naturaleza.
Yeah, what you mentioned about, you heard from this fellow who was in touch with a Black Project, or he was a Black Projects engineer, talking about space travel with superluminal spaceship.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if part of that is misinformation. I don't think it was our superluminal spaceship he's talking about. It was from an ET civilization. They'd been in touch with ETs who told them this.
Entirely possible. And it may have, that may have been entirely accidental because he may well have been relating that story second or third hand. But the principle was that he said, there's a wave coming. He couldn't describe it exactly. He wasn't a physicist, actually. He was an operative rather than an engineer. He said he thought the time scale was more like 2017, but he did say that superluminal craft had been out, taken a look at it, had reported what was going on, and that he said it could, I think his words were something like, it could just be a puff of wind or it could turn the Earth on its axis, but nobody really knows what's going to happen.
Well, I recently deciphered a crop circle, the one that shows the Avalon one that from 2008, shows the solar system, the planets arranged as they would be in 2012.
Right.
I think I remember reading something where you were talking about this. Hey, you know, Pluto's not where it should be.
David Wilcock has uses that in one of his talks.
Yeah.
Obviously in the wrong place.
Right, and because I know one fellow who's believing that this means the superwave will arrive in 2012, and he's actually working with people to build a shelter down in Australia right now, expecting that this will hit 2012. But my reaction is, why would they put that obvious error in there? And so I looked at it and noticed in the diagram that appeared 1 week later that shows what looks like Neptune's orbit, that circle, and it's marked, which seems to represent Pluto's crossing point on Neptune's orbit. And then it's got a little elliptical diagram with little circles, as if dividing it 11 equal parts. And to me, that's an elliptical exaggeration of Pluto's orbit, so that we don't mistake it as a circle, showing 11 subdivisions of Pluto's orbit. If you take the period of Pluto's orbit and you divide it by 11, you come to the amount that Pluto's displaced in that crop circle.
Okay, yeah.
And if you add that to 2012, you come to 2035 AD with the exact date, June 8th, when that crop circle appeared. In other words, it would have been 27 years into the future from 2008,
Okay.
which is interesting. So what are they saying? Does that mean that's when a superwave will arrive? Will it be the time when the current one will end, that it might arrive 2012, or what? You know, we don't know. But there is something on the pulsar diagram that even before this happened, I had written about it on my website. Somebody had discovered that, having read my book, they wrote me an email, said, by the way, did you know that the periods you attracted our attention to the Crab and Vela pulsars, which are these two supernova remnants, which are very important, close to us, in addition to Vulpecula pulsar. And I had stated the periods for these three, that they sort of form a symbolic arrow, if you understand the pulsar diagram, as I call it. That the periods are very close to the Fibonacci series, which create the golden mean. And sure enough, if you take the ratios of the two longer period ones, they come to the golden mean ratio to within that, it's 10 to the minus fifth, the difference. In other words, 100,000th is the deviation from that being perfect. But you notice that the Crab period is significantly off, and this is assuming if the second is a universal standard in extraterrestrial communication, now, because I'm suggesting that the pulsars are an extraterrestrial message, that pulsar is at 33 milliseconds, so if it's really 34 is the number you come up with in the Fibonacci series. So if you say, when would the Crab pulsar have that period where it ends up being 34 milliseconds? Well, it's in the future by so many years, and it comes out not very far from this 2035 date. I was coming up with something like 2037 or something, 2038. So it seems like something's going on here. It's interesting.
Right, so there's some kind of message there, but you're actually deciphering it differently than some of the 2012 enthusiasts, if you will.
Yeah, I think there's not enough information to immediately conclude that they're telling us we will be hit by a superwave on 2012, although a lot of people have contacted me who said, you know, they've been in telepathic contact with ETs who are telling them 2012 a superwave will arrive. In fact, one fellow said he had this ET contact and they were telling him about cosmic ray wave coming, and he wanted to know more information about it, so they said, well, just look up the work of Paul L. So he did a surf with Google and found my work. If this is, I don't know if, you know, if this is true, I mean, maybe they're aware of my website, I don't know. There.
Se va a poner recto perpendicular e iremos hacia un clima tropical en todo el planeta.